What's up, everybody? So in this video we have some multiple choice questions. Again, these are IB questions, specifically paper 1 on the topic 5.1. So basically to do with evolution and all this sort of stuff. Okay, so let's just get started. Again, always try these questions by yourself. Don't wait for me to answer them because maybe you could have done them by yourself. So anyways, let's just get started. What is the biological definition of the term evolution? Okay, so basically, for this one, there's a standard definition that the IB wants you to know. Okay, and it's the pretty accurate definition. So this one is worth memorizing. So if I go show you on the teaching video that I made, remember the definition was the cumulative change in heritable characteristics over generations. Okay, it's an extremely cumulative means gradual. It's a very gradual change in specific characteristics over a very long time. So very, very long time. Remember this? A long time. It feels like it's like working out and becoming in shape. It takes a long time. So it's like a good example was the giraffe. A very, very long time ago, many, many years ago, giraffes actually had short necks like this. And over many, many generations, only the ones with the longest necks kept passing on their genetics. And so over many generations, giraffes ended up developing extremely long necks the way they are today. Okay, so based on looking here, you can automatically see C is that option directly, the exact same definition. So it's going to be C, but we can real quick go over A, B, and D to see what's wrong with those. So A, the changes shown by fossils over millions of years. Okay, so that's not the definition of evolution, but the fossil record is a kind of evidence for evolution. So you can use the fossil record. I'll go down here. Again, this is what I use in the teaching video. So if you don't understand what I'm talking about, make sure to watch that video instead because it will make things a lot more clear. Anyway, so the fossil record is a kind of evidence that scientists can use to show evolution because they can trace back. For example, say this fish died, they can trace back. Say they find the skeleton, the fossil of a certain organism, they're able to use it and trace back to when that organism died, and that way they can know how long ago that organism existed. And using this case, they can kind of be able to check how organisms changed over time. Okay, how they evolved over time. Okay, so rather this one would be an evidence for evolution, but it's not the definition of evolution. B, transmission of favorable variations to offspring. So again, this is not the definition. This is like sort of a mechanism of evolution because over time, all the favorable characteristics are passed on and this leads to evolution, but it's not the definition. So C is the definition. How about D? The promotion of variation in species by sexual production. Again, this is just variation. This is not evolution. Okay, so for this one, it's very simple if you remember the direct definition. So it's worth going into remembering the direct definition. So it's going to be C. Next one. So this you'll see very often. Which pentadactyl limb is adapted for flight? So basically, what is a pentadactyl limb again? So this is another evidence for evolution. Okay, and they call it homologous structures. Homologous meaning similar structures. So similar looking structures, but they have different functions. So here they are. So for a human, they basically believe that a long time ago, there was something called a pentadactyl limb. It looked like this. And depending on where the organism went to, the limb got adapted and formed and morphed into a different variation of the original limb. So all of these are a variation of the original limb. You can see by the color, right? The limb changed. All of them have the same structure, but they are morphed into a different one depending on which environment this organism ended up traveling to. And over many generations, obviously, this morphed into a completely different structure. Okay, so basically, a pentadactyl limb shows evidence of a similar structure. A similar structure. They all have a similar structure, but they have different functions based on how they got slightly modified. So which of these structures do you think is the most appropriate for flying? Obviously, for flying, you want the lightest, thinnest kind of structure. So we're probably going to go with D because the heavier the structure, this is the one for the whale, and this is the one for some kind of maybe a monkey arm, and this is a human arm, right? I'm not exactly sure what that one is, but you should go with the thinnest one that looks the lightest because that's the best for flying, right? So it's going to be D. Okay, good. Next one. The picture shows skeletons of a frog and a domestic rabbit. Okay, so these are just the scientific names, so don't worry too much about them. So here we have the frog, here we have the rabbit. So they're pointing at the limb. Okay, X is the limb of the frog, Y is the limb of the rabbit. Now, what is the evolutionary relationship between X and Y? So what's the relationship between structure X and Y? So the leg of the frog and the leg of the rabbit. A, they are analogous. Okay, so it's not A because analogous means same function, different structure. So we know these are a similar structure, but they have a different function, right? It's like these that I showed you here. They're all similar in structure, but they have a slightly different function. Okay, so an analogous means different structure, same function. Okay, different structure, same function, which is not the case here. The frog's leg is made for a different function than the rabbit's leg, and they have a similar structure. Okay, the same bone structure from the pentadactyl limb. So it's not going to be A. B, X is analogous and Y is homologous. So this doesn't make any sense because to be analogous, you need to be analogous to something else. You can't be analogous by yourself. Okay, it's like doesn't make sense. It's like saying you are stronger, and that's it. That's the whole sentence. Doesn't make sense, right? You need to say you are stronger than what? You know, you got to compare it to something. So saying X is analogous doesn't make sense because you have to say X is analogous to something else, or Y is homologous to something else. Okay, so it doesn't make sense, this one, the sentence itself. Okay, so C, they are homologous. So yeah, the difference between homologous and analogous is same function, different structure, whereas homologous is same structure, different function. So an example of analogous would be a bird's wing and an insect's wing. They're both made for flying, but if you look at the structure, they have a completely different structure. Okay, this is very important, the difference between these two. So a frog and a rabbit, their legs have a different purpose. Okay, but they have a similar structure, so we call it homologous. So the answer is going to be C. So you'll see this 5.1 is a lot about this homologous idea, this pentadactyl limb idea. So what are homologous structures in animals? So A, body parts in different animals produced by the same gene. So no, because we know homologous means same structure, different function. So this is A is not saying that. So they're gonna say some random sentences that may sound right, but they're just wrong. So you gotta they basically here they're trying to confuse you by saying a random sentence that isn't related to the question. Okay, so you gotta pay attention to this. B, structures that have a similar function but a different origin. Okay, so no, this is not true because the pentadactyl limb, the whole point is that it has a similar origin, but they end up having different functions depending on the environment that these creatures went to. Okay, so it's not going to be this one because they're saying similar function, but we know it's different function, but the same origin. So this is saying the exact opposite of what it should say. Okay, a modification of the same structure in different animals. So this sounds right? It's a modification of the same structure. They're all slightly modified from one another depending on the environment. Okay, so this is right. It's going to be C. So D, structures found as part of the fossil record. So again, structures found in the fossil record would be bones, not necessarily homologous structures. Okay, it doesn't have to be homologous structures, so that's why it's not D. Because maybe you can find the fossil record of a bird and then also of an insect, and this would not be homologous, right? That's analogous, as I explained above here. So it's going to be C. Which comparable features provide evidence for evolution? So now they're asking for evidence of evolution. What would show evidence of evolution? What would show that change happened over a long time? So A, the rear legs of a kangaroo and a grasshopper. Okay, not this one because this is showing same function, different structure, because a kangaroo bounces and a grasshopper bounces, right? So their legs will have the same function, but a different structure. So we're going to look for something that's going to show homologous structures, because homologous structures, again, suggest originating from a common ancestor and then changing because of evolution into different ones. Whereas this one here, the kangaroo and grasshopper idea, doesn't suggest a common ancestor, because the structure is basically different, but they have the same purpose, and that's weird, right? That doesn't make sense. So B, the wings of a bird and a butterfly. Again, these same function, different structure. So it's not going to be this one. We're looking for different function, same structure. So here, the forearms of a human and the fins of a whale. Yeah, that is a different function. I mean, different function, same basic structure. Same basic structure. Okay, coming from the pentadactyl limb. Okay, so it's going to be C. So this one should be the fur of a bear and a wolf. So again, these have the same function, same different structure. They have, or actually, they probably have the same structure as well. So it's going to be C. Okay. So that's it for this video. In the next video, I'll do a bunch more questions. So I'll go over a bunch more questions on the same topic. So ideally, if you didn't understand, the whole purpose of these videos, honestly, is for me not to explain in detail what's going on, because I made teaching videos for that. So it's really just to guide you through the questions, to show you what you need to look for, what the IB is looking for, how you should try and approach these questions. That's really the purpose. So if you're finding that you're not really getting it, I really encourage you to check out the videos that I made explaining them carefully. It will make things make a lot more sense.